What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. We're making a game similar to the game The Binding of Isaac. In this video, we're going to be making this slimy dude. I think we only have one or two enemies in the game right now. We have like a zombie person thing, and we have a spider. I think I took the spider out of the game because it was kind of it didn't really fit the theme, and it's not the same level that I think the zombie is. Yeah, I'm going to show you how you can model this dude and how you can paint him like this, and he's got the glowing eyes, and basically the way he works is he just finds a spot that's kind of near the player and he walks to it using the nav mesh agent, because we replaced the A-star algorithm with the nav mesh. And after he walks there, he turns immediately and shoots at the player, and then he picks another spot and he carries on. So anyway, the entire project is available for download in the description of the video for free. And if you guys are enjoying the series, make sure you like my video and subscribe to my channel. And yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to speedrun this in Blender. So if you open up Blender and you go to File and you go to New and click Sculpting, this will open up a sculpting tab that has a quad mesh that's already scaled so that there's a lot of vertices, like it's subdivided like hundreds of times so that there's vertices for you to sculpt with. When you're sculpting, it just moves the vertices that are already there. So like when you paint here, you can see that it just moves the vertices up. And so let's Control Z out of that. So the other thing we could do is if we go into the quad sphere, we could press Shift D and Z and move it upwards. And then you can press S on your keyboard to scale it. So what we want to do is if we click this plus button at the top, we can add a modeling tab. And so then you have these two parts. So let's press L on the, P on the top part, and we'll separate it by the selection. And so now we have two quad spheres, and we want to join them together so that we can truncate the geometry that's in the middle. So if you press Alt Z on your keyboard, you get the see-through view, and you can see that this cuts into this. And so we want to get rid of that inner part. We don't want them to be overlapping. So if we click the top object and we click the bottom object, so shift click it and you press Control Shift B, you can click Union and then click on this box that gets created. And actually you got to apply the union first. So click on the resulting object, press Control A to merge them together, and then get rid of this resulting box and the boolean cutters at the top. If you don't have the bool tool option, like if you press Control Shift B and nothing happens, you have to enable it. So if you go to object preferences, there's this get extensions button, and you can type in bool, and the one that you're looking for is the bool tool, and this will allow you to press Control Shift B and merge them together. And now if you look, there's no geometry in the middle. It cuts that away. So this is a good shape to start with. And so we just want to make it more into what we had in the demo. So the top part is bigger than the bottom part, and the bottom part's a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to turn on X symmetry and maybe Z symmetry too. No, not Z, Y symmetry. So if we hold Control and we cut away, you can see it does it from all four sides. So we could just do this at the bottom here. And while we're doing this, it should do it on all the sides, which makes it perfectly symmetrical on all the sides, which ends up looking really cool. And so let's just add a little bit back here. And this is just the draw brush. You could do this with the clay strips. I think that's what I did initially, and we'll probably use the clay strips in a little bit. So just click around and make something that you like. Again, it's really important to note that this is a top-down game, so nothing really matters. So because you're looking down at it doesn't really matter. Like, who cares? So we'll just cut away some of his head, and not that much of his head though. So we want to lower the radius and then lower the strength as well, because we only want to cut away a little bit at a time. We don't want to cut away so much. And then if you hold Shift on your keyboard and you move your mouse across, you can smooth away some of the hardness that comes from cutting away. And we still want to add a little bit more to this, and then we will cut smooth it down again. Okay, so now we're just going to turn off the Y symmetry. So we're only doing this because the only one has eyes to be on the front of his head. I mean, you could do eyes on both sides if you want. That might be cool too, but we're not doing that. So if you hold Control, you can actually cut out eyes for him, and just turn up the strength back to 5 before you do this. We want these to be fairly deep holes. And we're going to leave, if you look in the one that I have, there's a lot of space in between the eyes. So you don't want to like make these so close together. They're kind of like actually kind of extruded away from the head a little bit. So we just want to do that like far apart. So like this kind of. And again, don't worry about like how perfect they are or whatever. It doesn't matter. So let's just do this, and then you can hold shift to smooth them out, which is perfect. And then yeah, so that's looking pretty good-ish. It doesn't really matter. So then on his forehead, I think we have like a dot or something. So like there's like this dot coming out. So you could do like turn off the symmetry for this and just make a little dot like this. And then from there, you can do a smaller dot. And so you can see that as we're doing this, we're running out of geometry, and that's why it's not doing anything when we try to do that. So we might have to remesh this. Let's just give it a second and see. So maybe this could be like a third eye or something like that. That's actually kind of looking ugly. Let's just make this bigger and zoom out just a little bit. And let's just see if we can do like that. And then back in the modeling tab, if you click on the middle one like this, we can press 3 to get a side view, turn on proportional editing, and scroll up on your mouse wheel so that it only affects a little bit. And we just want to like round this out. Maybe this will be like his third eye or something, like a gemstone, or who knows. It's just going to be a thing that pops out of his head. So we're just adding random details for the fun of it, because why not? So if you press Shift A on your keyboard, you can add a UV sphere, and we'll press G and X so that we can actually see it. Press Tab on your keyboard to go into edit mode, RX90 to rotate this towards the front. And then we want to press S and Y to scale this down like this, and then S and Shift Y to scale it down like this way, and scale and Y again. And we just wanted the eye to be kind of flat. It's got to go in the hole here, and then R and Z to rotate it, and then G and Z. And you just want it to be like kind of at the top of the hole, and it's kind of more of like a flat thing. And then we can press R and, right click it and set the origin to the geometry, and then R and X. We want to just rotate this so that it's facing, I'm going pretty fast through this because we have a lot to cover, and long videos don't get as many views as not long videos. So if you right click it, you can shade smooth. And then after you do this, we made this model with symmetry. So the head is perfectly symmetrical, which means that this side is the same as this side. So if you click on this, you could set the origin to the 3D cursor. And then if you go to the modifiers, you could add a mirror modifier, and it will automatically perfectly symmetrize itself to the other side. You can also use the symmetrize option. That's another feature that is an option, but this is looking really cool. Now we want to add antennas on the very top. So the ones that I already have are pretty cool. There's, I just made these with sculpting. So I'm probably gonna do that again, I guess. I don't know. So if you click on him, go back to the sculpting tab, and the problem that you'll run into is that you don't have enough geometry to do this. So okay, so turn on the X-axis symmetry again, so that way it's perfectly symmetrical. So as you're drawing this, just keep in mind that you're pulling the geometry away from the character model. So that looks pretty bad, but anyway, it doesn't matter because so you're not actually adding geometry when you're sculpting. So you can see that it's pulling these vertices towards where you're sculpting. So anyway, so to fix this, we can click remesh and then click remesh, and that will fix that. And then we need to smooth it out. So you can hold shift and smooth it out like this, and like that. Perfect. And then what we want to do is if we go into the modeling tab again, you can select the top part of this one and then scale it down and just zoom out on your thing a little bit. So that way it gets more of like a horned, like we don't want the end to be the same width as the rest of it. So just like that is pretty cool. And back in the sculpting tab, you can see that this tore away this part, so you can hold shift and smooth that out again. And I think this is pretty cool, to be honest. Like this is, I think we're going to use this, and you could into the modifiers now. So if you look here, you go to statistics, you can see this is 100,000 triangles. We don't want to leave it at 100,000 triangles. It's way too much. So if you go to the modifiers, you could type in decimate, and we just want to decimate this to like 0.05 or something. So we want to cut away almost all of the geometry because it doesn't, it's a top-down game, so you're not really going to see the details. And this makes it only 5,000 faces, which means that it'll be console friendly in your game. Like it's not going to be lagging your computer to be running this or whatever. So after you're done that, you can right click this and shade it auto smooth. That will basically turn it back into what it was. You can see that there's some like pinching here. So if you do this again, you can just do actually just shade it smooth instead of auto smooth. And if you go into this, the reason that there's pinching is because the way that the vertices are. So if you wanted, you could, there's something called retopologizing. So you could, there's many YouTube videos on how to retopple things. And you could make this into quads instead of it being triangles. And it would probably look better. And it would be probably lower poly when you're done. We're not going to do that. You can go look up how to do that if you want to. And that will get rid of some of the pinching. But again, it's a top-down game, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. So now we're going to paint it. Okay, so the first thing you need to do to paint it is if you select the eyes, let's apply the mirror modifier and just go into the materials and just type in eye material. And you don't have to set this as anything, but if you press Z on your keyboard, you can click material preview so you can see it and just set the emission to be like green and turn up the strength. Maybe to 5 is okay. Don't worry about what it looks like in Blender because it will never look the same in Blender as it looks in Unity. So when you like paint this or whatever, you kind of have to look at it in Unity after you're done to see what it's actually going to look like. So then if we click on the actual character, we can type in bug material. And then what we want to do is at the top, you can drag over like this to make a new area and then click shading and then press N on your keyboard to get rid of the side panel, scroll in, press Shift A, type in image, and then click new. We'll call this bug image and then change the color to be the color that you want, the darkest color to be. Or actually, let's make it a little bit lighter. Let's make this the light shade. And yeah, this is like to your own preference, okay? So just drag the color into the base color field, turn the roughness all the way up, kind of. We don't really want this to be reflective at all. So if it's less reflective, the pinching and stuff like that is not going to be as visible, especially in the game. It doesn't matter in Blender because we're not going to be using this material anyway. We're going to be putting this into a different material that doesn't use this roughness value. But either way, so now we need to paint this. So if you right click this, you can close the area. And if you press tab on your keyboard to go into edit mode, you could press A to select all of the vertices. And then you could press U on your keyboard and then choose Smart UV Project from the unwrapping. If you've done this correctly, if you click the plus button at the top, you can open up a new UV editing tab and you can see that this is the different sections of your bug that are cut out that are going to be painted on. So we're going to go and open up a texture painting tab. So click plus at the top, click general and click texture paint. And so to paint this, we're just going to be using a texture that you can download actually from the description of the video. So press Z and go to material preview in here. And then what we want to do is on the right. So just make sure you're on paint hard. On the right, we'll go to texture and then we'll click new. And then we'll click these little buttons at the side here and click open. So attached to the video, oh, this is my error folder. Attached to the video, there's going to be a texture for cobblestones. And I'm not sure if I like this one the best. There's a bunch of textures here. To get these textures, if you just type in rock sculpting on Google, it'll be the top result that is given away for. I'll probably link the website too to give them credit for this. But anyway, so let's open this image. And then what we want to do is we don't want to paint in black, okay? Because obviously black is like, that's not the color that we want. So if you click on the black color, you can click the eyedropper and click on the green. And then we want to, if you click on this little tool button, this goes into the options of the paintbrush. And instead of doing the space stroke, which applies it while you're holding the button every so often it will place this there, we want to change this to anchored, and then you can drag like this. It's really cool, and you can do like this if you wanted to. We don't want it to be black though, okay? So the default way that this works is it blends these colors together. So it mixes them. And because the majority of this image is black, when you do that, the black gets added to the picture as well. We only want the white part to be added, and we want it to brighten the areas that are already there. So in the blend, just change this to, I think lighten is what I used. I can't remember, to be honest. And so when you do this, you can see that nothing is happening on the actual model. And it's because we have the same color as the color selected. So after you've eye dropped the color from over here, make the color lighter or darker. I think we're going to do darker. So you can see that when we drag this, it starts applying it. And lighten seems to suck. So let's pick a different one. Maybe overlay. I don't remember which one I used, to be honest. Overlay doesn't work either. Maybe add. Yeah, add seems to be working, and that's making it really bright. So let's go to a dark color, a darker shade of the green, and let's just put it on it like that. So this just gives like it that buggy looking texture. And I think the other thing that I did was after you're done that, if you go into the paint soft, I had made little tiled areas on the head of him only. So let's go into his sculpt again. And because we're only moving the vertices that are there, we might have to add. So we're just going to add some little areas here so that his head is kind of bumpy. We don't want it to be that bumpy, just a little bit. And so then in those areas, what you can do is you can draw a color on the edge of the area. So let's go back to the texture paint. So this is going to be the soft brush. So paint soft. We want the strength to be relatively low. We don't want to paint a lot. And so these little areas where we have like sections that look like they're different, we could actually paint them so that they stand out a little bit more. So you might need to do this in solid mode to see where we probably should have done this first, to be honest. So let's see if we can add some color here. And this top part, is that just a shadow? I think that might, yeah, that's just a shadow, isn't it? Okay, so we'll do around like those. And then we can go lighter actually and just do like the middle. And so we're still on mix here. Let's just do super light. How does that look? And the other thing you could do is you could blur it together as well. So there's like the blur tool. And this will just soften some of these. If there's any areas that look like they don't blend together well, you can blur them. This will lag your computer, by the way. Blur is like a pretty intense thing. So I think this is looking pretty good. And like I said, this is a top-down game, so I wouldn't worry too much about what it looks like. So this is it for making this. So now we just want to export everything into a folder. So let's go File, Export, FBX. And we'll just create a new folder in our downloads folder. So we could call this bug tutorial. And then right in here, we can call this bug enemy or whatever. Change this to FBX unit scale, click export. And then we want to go into the texture paint and save this image in that same folder. So downloads, bug enemy. No, that's not it. Bug tutorial. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so that's the entire process of making this in Blender. The animation, we could put bones in this technically, and so we can move like the antennas around and stuff like that. We're not going to do that. This video will be way too long if we do that, but we're just going to shrink him. So when he goes to attack, all he's doing is we're shrinking the y-axis to half of what it is, and then the y-axis goes back to what it was initially, and that's how his attack works. So that's it for the Blender portion of this, and now we're going back into Unity. Okay, so back in Unity, what we want to do is drag in those two files that we just had. So the bug image and the model, and you could just drag them into, I created a folder called bug tutorial, and I'm just going to drag it in there. And then let's minimize all of this stuff in the game, and I'll just drag the bug enemy right into the scene. And so I don't know where it went to. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, so it's obviously in the rock and under the ground. So let's move it up. Okay, and let's rotate it 180 degrees on the y-axis, so it's facing the camera. And looks like I made this like 2 in size or something along those lines. And it actually looks like my new one is kind of a little bit better looking than the other one. So I'm probably going to use the new one, to be honest. I'll probably throw the other one in the garbage. So let's right click at the bottom and click create material. And we'll call this bug material. And so we can drag the bug image onto the square box beside the base map. And then we could drag the bug material onto the bug. And his eyes seem to be the perfect glowiness already, so we're not going to change that at all. And I think I did more, like the painting for the other one, I did more layers, and the color is a little bit darker. So let's see what it looks like in the game. This bug enemy needs to be moved more in the center so I can see it. And I think I like it better. So let's make it to 2.5 maybe. And if you go into the bug material, turn the smoothness down a little bit. He's a rough bug, and you could play with the metallic if you want to. It doesn't matter. And then let's see, you could have like a darker shade to him. I don't know. This guy, he's a lot higher poly. So if you look at him, he probably has like 10,000 or 20,000 triangles, whereas the one that we have has less than that. So I think this looks pretty good. So then we want to add all of this stuff to him. So the first thing we want to do is just unpack him. So click prefab and unpack. And we want to create an animation specifically for this bug. So if you click on the animation tab at the bottom, if you click on the bug enemy, let's do this in the scene view so you can actually see him. Right now he's floating above the ground too. If you click on create, make sure you have the bug enemy selected. Click create. And we can call this bug animation, bug attack animation tutorial. Okay, so if you click record here, and we are at 2.5 right now, let's drag it over to 15, whatever. It's not seconds, it's something else. Unlock this. We rescaled it while we were, all 3 of the values were the same, but in this case, we're going to be lowering only the y-axis. So this is what he's going to do. And then he'll go back to the first one. So now if you click play, you can see that this is happening way too slow, and this should be happening over a longer period of time, maybe. So let's click play again. So let's go to the game view and we can see how that looks. So he's not going low enough. We want him to squish right down into like nothingness and then come shooting back up. So let's go to 0.1. How does it not look like anything? He's completely flattened, but it's not visible. 0.6 or something. He shouldn't go down to like nothing. And then this guy, let's just stop the recording for right now. Let's move him down so he's actually on the ground, and let's click play again. Okay, so we want this to go up higher than, so let's click record again and change this to like 4 or 3.5. And then this can slowly happen all the way back to there. But this should be 2.5. So he slowly goes back to his actual size. So let's click play. Okay, hang on. So he shrinks, he attacks. So we duplicate this one to about here. Okay, so let's stop this for a sec. Let's go back in here and let's mess with the rotation. So he's here, and then when he's here, maybe he needs to rotate on the x-axis so he's facing forward a little bit. And then here he does the attack. He should be rotated backwards, because we're not getting enough visibility from the other thing or whatever. And so then we want to copy this rotation and paste it here. And then the rotation should go back to 0 here. So let's see how that plays out. So let's see what it looks like in the game. Okay, so I think that his animation here needs to be very slightly longer. And then this can go over a little bit of time. It should be longer than that. So let's see. So it's crazy, like just a little bit of like scaling and rotation is more than enough for a character like this, because he's just attacking and it's something that like he's just a bug. So he's squishy, right? So it doesn't matter. And you could also move the antenna, but I don't think that would really add anything. So I think this is perfect, and I think it looks way better than the other one. The other one looks a little bit more realistic, but we don't really need realism in our game. We're just making a stickman game, so I think that this one looks a lot better. So this is perfect for this. Okay, so for this animation to happen, we need to make an animator controller that actually controls the animations on the enemy. So if you click on the enemy, you can see that there's already an animator attached to him because we created this animation. And oh, is this already an animator controller? If yours didn't automatically make an animator controller, you can right click at the bottom and create an animator controller. And then on the right here, you can either click add component and type in animator, or you can drag it from here over here. So it's on the thing. If we double click the bug enemy, you can see that it's defaulting to this animation. We don't want that to be the default animation. We want nothing to be the default animation. So let's create a new state and we'll call this nothing. And right click this and set the layer as the default state. We only want him to attack. Like he should only do the attack animation when he's actually attacking. You could use a similar animation for moving if you want to, so that he shrinks and grows in height as he's moving. And you could even make him like sliding, and you could put like slime on the ground or something like that. Maybe I'll do that in a later version of this. I'm not going to do it right now. This is already too long of a video, but so this is great for the animator, and there should be a avatar for this as well. So if you click on your bug enemy and you go to rig on the right, you can go to create from this model for the avatar, and then you can click apply. And then inside of your character, again, you can go into your bug enemy. This will add this bug enemy avatar, and you can drag the avatar into the avatar slot. And then you need a script for this. So if you right click at the bottom, you can create a C# script. My entire project will be attached to the description of the video. So if you can't get it to work, you can always just download my copy of the game. Okay, I'll be uploading a copy that has everything done here. So yeah, so from here, what you can do is you can drag the script that you've made onto your character. And then you also want to add a nav mesh agent to your character. The nav mesh system is something that we added in a previous video. So if you go back in time, you can find the video and where we set that up. I'm just going to set the speed to 30. It doesn't need to be nearly as fast as the zombie does, because we're not trying to make the character, the enemy catch up to your player. We're going to make him shoot like an acid ball that goes and hits your player or whatever. So after you've done that, you got to add these variables into the thing. So let's take a look at the script that we've made. So this is the bug enemy script. So at the very top, we've inherited from enemy. Enemy is a class that we made in the nav mesh agent videos. So if you didn't watch those videos, you should go watch it. Enemy inherits from the enemy damage script. This makes it so that when you hit your enemy with an attack, he flashes white and then he slowly changes back to the color that he initially was. So this is a very long thing, and we're not going to have time to do that here. So yeah, so this is the enemy. So it's got basic things like the health, the damage, the enemy death effect, which is like what happens when he dies. Well, this is a slimy bug, so he probably blows up into like slime or something, right? We're just going to use the one from our zombie for this, but yeah, so this is the script, and so inside inside of the bug script, we are overriding the start method. You have to override it because we're inheriting from enemy, which also has a start method, and also the enemy damage script also has a start method. So they all have start methods. So you have to hit override, otherwise it will do the start method from the base class, and it won't it won't do multiples. So when you're calling this, you have to call base.start for the start method in the enemy to actually go. So this enemy method has a start method, and this will not play unless you call it specifically, because only one of these start methods happens. So by running base.start, it will run that. Okay, so everything inside of this is running inside of a coroutine. So that way you can have things happen sequentially, and we're not using the update method. So this is kind of a complicated script, and a lot of this just came from like AI generation, and then I changed it. You have to know how it works. Like if you generate something with AI, you should know how everything is working in order for you to edit it, so that it, like if you just paste in this code, initially it will look like shit, and then you can refine it into something good. So the first thing we're doing is, this is a while loop is just forever. So this is just going to run this script indefinitely until the enemy dies. We're getting a random position near the player. So this basically gets a random position inside of a sphere multiplied by the move radius, which I've set to 50. You can see that on the right here. So we're getting a random position within a 50 unit square, or not square, radius, sphere. And we're setting the Y to be 0 because your character doesn't move up and down. He only moves like, he's moving along a flat plane. He's not moving upward. So you don't need to worry about like the Y axis. The target position is going to be the player's position plus this random offset. So we're getting so let's say the player is standing like right here. Well, the radius of the bug to move will be like around here. And the reason we're doing that is, like, let's say the bug is standing here or something. Well, we don't want him moving like over, like off into outer space or whatever. We want him to eventually attack the player. So like if the player's in the room, he should be slowly moving towards the player to kill the player. That's the whole point of the enemy. And if you do it around the enemy, he'll just move in a random direction all the time, like a completely random direction. And he'll never end up catching up to the player unless you just happen to walk near the enemy. That's up to you. You could do it that way if you want or whatever. Then we're going to try to sample the position on the nav mesh. This basically just checks if this position is on the nav mesh. So if you go into our scene, you can see all the areas that are blue. These are areas that are on the nav mesh. So we need to check, is the specific thing that we hit, like the spot that we targeted, is it on the nav mesh or is it not? If it is, we're going to return the position that we hit. And if it's not, we're going to return the player's position. So if it doesn't find an area, like let's say our player is standing in the corner here and it finds something way over here off the map. We don't want our character trying to move off the map. We want the enemy to move directly towards the player because it can't find a spot that's suitable that's on the thing. And you could have it recalculate or something like that, but it's that's way more complicated. So we're not going to do that in this case. So then we're actually going to move towards this position. So right here, we're setting the destination of the nav mesh agent to be the position. Then we're waiting 2 seconds. So while the move time is greater than 0, it's going to be doing this loop for 2 seconds. And then we're minusing the time, .delta time. So because this is starting at 2, over the period of time, this will become, based on the actual real life time, this will become closer to 0 and it will be eventually 0. So we're moving towards that position for 2 seconds. And then while we're moving towards the position, every time this iterates, we're going to rotate the nav mesh agent steering target. So if the remaining distance is greater than the stopping distance and it has a path, because if it gets to where it's going, we don't want him to rotate in a circle. He'll start spinning. This is something that's actually fairly common with if you don't do this, he'll just spin when he gets to the target. So if the nav mesh remaining distance is greater than the stopping distance, which we've set at 2, 2 is very, very small, by the way, and there's a path still, then we're going to rotate our nav mesh agent towards the steering target, which is the destination. And this will make him slowly turn towards the target over, like he won't immediately rotate to the target, but he'll rotate over a period of time. The method for rotating towards them is just using slurp. Slurp is, it's just like a way of smoothly rotating instead of immediately rotating. If you set the rotation to be the same as the player, your character will snap to that position, and this just makes him smoothly turn towards the target, which is your wherever got picked within that sphere. And then so after we get to the position. So after those 2 seconds end, we're going to reset the path, which means that your nav mesh will not be moving at all. There's no path. We're resetting the path to get rid of the path altogether. And then we're starting this coroutine called turn to player, which basically we want the enemy to very, very quickly turn towards the player. And this is what actually turns the enemy times the rotation speed, which I've set to I've set it to 5 here, but it's much, much higher in the actual enemy. I don't have it open. I think I set it to like 30 or something. So he immediately turns and rotates towards your character. And then so this coroutine is happening at the same time as, because we're starting this as a coroutine, this other code will continue. It doesn't, oh, no, I'm wrong. So it will turn to the player with using that code below, which is like, again, it's going to be very, very quick. It's going to play the animation that we have from our animator controller. So if you go to the animator, we have to name this attacking. This is the animation that we made earlier. And so it will play this. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to make transition back to nothing. From this, we want to make sure it has an exit time. Set the exit time to 1 so the entire animation happens. Change the transition duration to 0. So when this animation is done, he'll go back to doing nothing. And if you leave this playing, you won't be able to play it again. I'm not sure if that's true or not. This is what I've done for all my other animations. So you'll play the attack animation, which is what we made earlier, where he like leans forward and he leans backwards and does that attack. And then we're instantiating this attack game object, which we're going to make right after we're done explaining the script. So the attack game object is like the slimy ball that he shoots at the player. And then we're adding this force to it. So we're adding the front of the enemy plus vector up times 0.01. So the slime slightly goes upwards. It doesn't just go in a direct straight line forwards. It goes up a little bit because there's a rigid body attached to the attack. It also has gravity, so it goes up a little bit and it falls down like a lobbing type of thing. And then we use impulse to make it go. And then we wait half a second and that's it. Then it just happens again and again and again until this enemy dies or you die or whatever happens. Okay, so the very last thing we need to work on is the attack for the bug thing or whatever. So what I did was I downloaded this slime seamless texture from the internet. Now, this is a free license of this because it comes from Adobe stock. So it's important to note you can't sell this. So if you're making a game where you're actually trying to get a profit, you can't use this in your game where there's a profit. If you want that, you can make your own slime texture pretty easily. You could use Krita. Yeah, so in Krita, just open up a new image to make sure it's a square. So 500 by 500 because we're going to make it seamless. And then inside of this, you can go to view and turn on wraparound mode. Krita is a free application that you can download from the internet. And so you want to start with the dark color first and paint the whole thing dark. And then go a little bit lighter on the hue, which, yeah, something like that maybe. And so this is the airbrush. So we just want to turn down the opacity because we want to cut away parts of the mesh. You can use this as like a reference. You can see like it just kind of goes across like that. So you could see what that looks like and turn the opacity to 100 because it obviously didn't do anything. So turn down the size of your brush to 150 and probably should have done that in one stroke. And then you need to do even lighter. So this should be in the centers of the things that you already have. So come from the very edge and don't worry about it being too perfect right now because we're going to blur it or something probably. So let's just see if we can smudge this or what kind of brush do we have here? Hang on. The whitest brushes are for pure blending and the purplish brushes are, okay, so the whitish brushes. So these ones are for smudging. So then you can use this to smudge it. That looks like shit. Make it less opacity, bigger size. So we just want to get rid of like, there shouldn't be hard lines in your texture. Okay, so there we go. And then let's see if we can find a brush like, ooh, that's kind of slimy looking. Let's see if we can make that a little bit greener. And ooh, here we go. Wow. And you don't have to worry about this being too perfect, okay? You're not going to make it as good as the Adobe stock picture, obviously. It's not going to happen. Maybe you will. I don't know. I'm probably not going to be able to do that. So I don't like that. What if we do it like that though? Like if we blur it. And then I don't even know what that stuff is. Ooh, what's this? Is this good? Let's make the brush bigger. And then we could just dab it on. Ooh, that's kind of looking slimy-ish. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter. You could cut away some of this if you want to. So you make your own texture if you're using this in a real game. And actually, this is too realistic. So the one that we're trying to use is maybe too realistic. Let's see if we can get an ultra bright one, but we just wanted to put like a very, very slight dots on this. It's looking pretty cool. And then maybe like a white and then ultra small and just like, no, that's too small. Hang on. Right about there, maybe. I don't know. Low opacity, maybe. So that you have like you're just highlighting these different areas that are like super bright in the thing. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to use this instead. Let's do this. So save this as, actually, sorry, don't save it, export it. So click export, and then we'll just do slime.png. We're just going to save this into this bug tutorial folder. So we'll save it here, and then I use the picture. I use the internet picture instead of making my own, but let's just use our own. So from here, we'll turn this into a sprite. Actually, let's just leave it as the default and click apply. The max size, you could change this to 512 because the size of our picture is 500. So you want to make it close to that. You can leave the filter mode as bilinear. I'm going to do trilinear. Why not? And I think that's good. So then we need to make a sphere, which is going to be our, let's turn off these gizmos for right now. And let's make a sphere that's going to actually be the attack. So on the left, you can right click and click 3D object sphere, and you can make this the slime attack. So this is going to be the ball that the bug shoots out at the player. So if you double click on it, we'll zoom in, and it's way too small, it looks like. So look at it from a top down, I guess. Let's turn off the gizmos. You can see how small this is. Let's go ahead and turn this up so it's bigger and go into the scene view. And then we want to make a material out of this. So we want to right click in the open area at the bottom, and we want to create a URP lit shader graph. And we'll call this slime shader. And then if you right click that, you can click create material, and we'll call, you could just leave, you know what, just leave it as it is. It doesn't matter. So then we'll drag this onto the slime attack. And then we need to edit the shader. So the other thing we need to do is we made this slime material, but we also want it to be a normal. So press Control D to duplicate it. And you can call this material slime normal. And you can drag the slime material. Actually, sorry, double click on the slime shader. In the slime normal at the top, just change this to a normal map and click apply. And so now we're going to make the slime shader. So in the graph inspector, we want to turn off casting and receiving shadows. It's slime, so it's not going to be shadowy. That's not going to matter. And we're going to make this unlit probably because it's a the slime is not going to be really affected by lighting. It could, but it just doesn't matter. So let's actually, it is going to be affected by lighting because we're using the normal map. Duh. Anyway, so let's drag the slime into here, and then the slime normal, we could drag this into here as well. In the drop down for this, you can change this to object from tangent. And so the regular texture can go into the base color, and then this one can go into the normal. And then we can press save, and let's drag this away so we can see this while we're editing it. So you can see it kind of looks slimy-ish, which is great. Now we want the slime to be moving while it's doing this. So we want to use a tiling and offset node. So if you press right click and click create node, you can type in tiling and offset and put the output of this into the UV of this texture. And you could also do it into the normal at the same time. And then we want a time node. So you can right click and add a time node. And we want to multiply this by something way, way smaller. So let's just do 0.1 so that it's moving very, very slowly. And we'll put this into the offset. So you can see that this moves the slime around now. And now if we save this, it moves on the thing and it kind of looks like it's rotating. Okay, and we also want this to be kind of glowy, so that because this lime is like, it should be more visible than this. It's supposed to be like catching your eye so you can dodge it or whatever. So the sample texture here, we're just going to put this in with a color node, and you could make a input for this if you want to. So I don't know, I'm not going to do that, but we'll just create a color, change it to HDR, and then we will take the output of this and we'll multiply it with the color. Oh, multiplying it by itself or by 2 seems to be working as well. So, but we'll just turn this to like a green or even like a white and make it really bright. And then we'll put that into the base color instead and just save it. And so this is that view. Let's see what this looks like from the side a little bit. And we want to turn this right up because it should be really bright and shiny. And I don't like this at all, so let's do green maybe, and then turn this down. We could maybe we should put this into a power node. So power A. So this makes the bright parts brighter and the dark parts darker. So that way there's more of a differentiation between the colors. I kind of like this. So the other thing you could potentially do is you could you could make this a transparent and then use that to, if you added transparency, you could make the dark parts invisible so that you could cut away from this. I'm not going to bother doing that. It doesn't matter. So let's smooth this down to like 0.2. We shouldn't have like reflecting lights because it's like a slime. And we could probably put this into the emission too. Why not? Let's see how that looks. Cool. So now it's a little bit too bright, maybe. So let's just cut this down to like 0.4. And let's put it back to 1.6. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it'd be cool if we could make this, the normals have more of an effect so that it becomes like more like drippy and movie aroundy. If drippy and movie aroundy, okay. Let's see. I don't know. We're not going to bother with that because it's going to just move the outside of it. The sphere that comes with Unity doesn't have a lot of geometry, so we could technically cut away some of it and by making invisible parts. I wonder if that will work. Let's see. Let's try to make part of it invisible. We're not going to spend too long on this, but let's go to, this is already a super long video, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. Let's go to the graph inspector and we'll set this to transparent. And you won't be able to connect this right to the alpha because there's no parts in here that are dark enough for, I'll show you. If we do this, you can see that nothing becomes invisible. I mean, it's invisible, but it's not noticeable. We want the darkest parts to be invisible and then the lightest parts to not. Let's change the power to 1.2 across the board because this is too bright. And then we can take the power and go into a color replace node. So then in the color replace node, we're going to take the from color, which is that, and we're going to replace it to black. And then the range has to be turned up. So this will make it so that it actually cuts away the darkest parts of it. And then if we turn up the fuzziness, okay, you can see this changes like the differentiation. So we could put this in the alpha. And so the black parts should be invisible. Let's see. And I think the black parts are not invisible because of the normal, because the normal is not affected by this. Let's delete the normal for now and save this. And the black parts should be technically invisible. Let's get rid of the emission for a sec. Interesting. Okay. How is that possible? What? Okay, let's undo this. Let's get rid of this for a sec. We'll put this back into the emission so that it can go back to being glowy and shiny. And then we'll just add a noise that's going to be 25, and we'll put that into the alpha instead. And so that's not visible. So this, we could also try to replace the color. So from the dark area to black, and the range can be turned up. Turn up the fuzziness a little bit, maybe. Alpha, save. Is it just like an emission problem? Like, why is it doing this? Okay, so it is an emission problem. So it doesn't like that. So we want to turn the range down a little bit so that only a little bit of this should be cut away. So more than that. Oh, sorry, that's negative. That's why. Okay, so let's do more than that. And then maybe it could be moving as well based on the same noise from over here. So put this into the UV. And then we want the color to be brighter. So let's go back to having a power of 2, and maybe we'll even do higher because we want the bright parts to be super bright and the dark parts to not be. They should be invisible. All right, so that's gonna do for the shader. So let's dock this at the top for right now, and now we're gonna make a visual effect that makes like drippy like slime coming off of this. So if you right click on the bottom area, you can click create visual effects, visual effect graph, and we'll just call this slime VFX tutorial. And after you're done that, you can drag it onto the slime attack. If you don't have VFX graph as an option, you can go into the package manager at the top and type in visual. And one of the options should be the visual effect graph. You have to install it through the package manager in order to use it. So then from there, we want to reset where this is. So when I drag this onto the slime attack, it's you can see the position is wrong and the scale is wrong. Just click reset on this. This will put it directly on top of your little slime thing. And because this is rotated 90 degrees, we actually need to do negative 90 degrees so that this is facing upwards. Our slime is rotated because the side of it, we want it to be cut in the middle because it's a top-down game. And so we're going to do a lot of things to this. So if we double-click on the visual effect graph, and we are just going to drag this out and make it bigger so you can see it. So this is great. Let's leave the number of particles for right now. The velocity is fine. We could change this from 0.2 to 3, so it goes up higher. And then in the update particle, we want to add gravity because the slime will be going up, but also falling down, and it's going to hit the ground as well. So press spacebar on the update particle and add gravity. And then on top of the gravity, we want to have it collide with the plane. So click update particle, collide with plane, and then we want the plane to be below this because he's going to shoot this and it's going to go basically directly straight. So we want the plane to be like negative about here. Okay, so you can see this is going to end up looking like slime kind of. So we want this to be higher. So let's try 15. No, that's way too high. Maybe 5. We want it to kind of go up and we want it to go out more. So right now it's only going directly up and just landing on the ground. Let's just try negative 3 and 3. And we can do that for a Z as well. And we don't want it to go sliding. So in the friction, you could just turn that to 1. So wherever the slime lands, because slime is sticky, it should stick to the ground. And so that's great. And then we want to use the shader that we just made. So if you click back on your slime shader, you just need to enable the visual effect graph. So it's the very bottom option. Turn off preserve specular lighting and press save. And then so in this output particle quad, we can change this to the slime shader that we just made. Now I named it the same thing as my other slime shader. So I think it's this one. Okay, and you can see that this is putting a square box. So because that's what a quad is, we don't want a square box. We're going to use a sphere. So you could use an output particle Europe lit mesh. And then from there, it defaults as a capsule. So we'll change that to a sphere. And if you really want, you could go into Blender and make a cool looking slime thing, and you could even animate it if you want to. We're not going to do that because this video is already over an hour, so probably not going to do that. So let's do this, and it's looking okay. We want the start size to be more randomized than this. So in the initialize particle, you can press spacebar, just type in size. What? Set size. If you move the visual effect graph down a little bit, you can see there's a random option. Put it on per component. We'll set the size to 1, 2, 3. Oh my goodness, that's huge. Nope. Let's just do 0.1 to 0.5. And okay, so we are going to use spheres for the output for this, and we want this color to be an editable thing. So we want like the little slime pieces that are coming out to be very, very glowy, like more glowy than the actual main piece. So what we want to do is convert this to a property. By doing this, you can edit it within the visual effect graph. So let's close out of this, and we'll just actually press save on both things, and I'll show you. And I think that these are probably too big. So let's go into the game view, and let's actually just move this down so it's actually on the level that it's going to be when it's actually going. So let's just do like this. It's under the ground now. Cool. So about there maybe, and right in front of this guy. This is not the right one. It's that one over there, but it doesn't matter. So this is where it's going to probably appear in front of him. And yeah, so I mean, when it goes flying across, it's going to look pretty cool. Let's see what that looks like. So if we move the position Z, we need way more particles. And maybe we need to make this additive. So what we should do is maybe duplicate the shader and make this version additive so that the particles go over top of each other. But if the more that are on top of each other, they become more like glowy. So let's change this to like 200, and we'll do 500 here maybe. And that's a lot. So these are spheres. So if you're using a bad computer, you might have problems with this. I'm probably not going to have problems, but you might. So we're going to copy this shader. So in the bug enemy tutorial, I already copied this once, but we're going to do it again. So take the slime shader, press Control D, and we'll just call this slime shader additive. And then we can open this. And then inside of here, we can change it from alpha to additive, and then we can save it. And then back here, we can change this to the additive version. And so now they're going to be kind of glowy, and they add together. And the more that are on top of each other, they'll glow more. And we could actually rotate these over life as well. So in the update particle underneath the gravity, if you press the spacebar, we're going to set angle, or sorry, add angle. What the fuck is going on here? Add angle. And we just want to add a very, very small rotation. And this could actually be random. It's fine. So do per component, and we'll just put 0.1 to negative 0.1 on all three of the axes. And I want to actually see more rotation than that. So because as they're coming out, they could rotate and just do whatever. So let's see. So 0.4, we just copy this and paste it across the board. Okay, and we still can't really see it, so we want to have more than that. So let's create a node over here. It's going to just be a float, and the float is going to go into A. So this will make all of them the same. So let's set that to 1, and then we're going to multiply the float by -1 and put it into the book. This is just so we can change them all at the same time without going through and changing every single one. So we can use this as like a draggy bar to control how much they're rotating. And remember, when they hit the ground, because we're using friction, we've changed the friction to 0.36, by the way. The friction will prevent it from rolling after it's hit the ground. So let's take a closer look at this, and you can see that these are kind of rolling, and that's probably too many particles. Let's try 100 instead, and then we'll do 300. And we probably want to make these glow just a tiny bit more, maybe 2, maybe 3. No, not 3, 1, 2.1. I don't know. So now when this is going across the room, it's going to look pretty cool. So let me just see. So, because like when you shoot this, we want the lifetime to be lower for the particles and we want more particles. So let's do that. So we want the lifetime to be 0.1 to 1 because this is going to go across the room really quickly. And when it does that, you're not going to see like the particles have to keep up with how fast it's moving and it moves really fast. So we want to change this to maybe 300 and 1000. Again, this is a lot. So if you don't have a video card, you might have problems with this. So now we have this really cool looking like fiery thing. It's pretty sweet. So let's see. And are we using the additive? I feel like it should be more transparent than that. Slime shader additive on a sphere. Let's go into the slime shader additive for a sec and change the fuzziness to 0. And just we'll cut up the range a lot so that more of it is transparent. And it'd be super cool if we could like dissolve the edges or something. Let's turn the fuzziness back up actually so that we get like more turn the range down. I don't know. I don't like that you can see that they're spheres. Let's change the size over life. And we want to make sure this is multiplying. So at the top, make sure you turn this to multiply. And let's start with like really big. And then let's get rid of this middle vertice and it will just go straight down. And we can rotate this like this so that it's like doesn't have a point where it like slows down at the end. And we want the biggest part of this to be bigger. So let's set the size random 1 to 3 so that it's much larger. And to 9. And that's obviously that's too bright, but let me see what it looks like. So you shoot this and oh, that's looking way cooler. Okay, the rotation is way too much. So let's just change this to like 1 or something and just try this again. We want the color over life to have the alpha go down on it. So let's set that up. So I think we can use curve and we could put the lifetime into this, I think. So the time, age over lifetime can go into this, and then this can go into the alpha of the color. We want this to fade over the lifetime. So right now it's not fading over the lifetime. So it can start at the full brightness. And then again, this middle vertex, we don't need this. And this can be rotated so that it kind of matches the size. You could even put this into the same. That's just not, it was already working. So now when we drag this around, you can see that fades over life. It's pretty sweet. It's looking cool. Okay, that's too bright. So let's okay, so the color for these 3 is 3. Let's just change it to 2. So that's okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, that's better for sure. We want the starting angle to be different. So we're adding angle like 1 or whatever, but we want the angle for like the actual starting to be randomized. So in the initialize, just type in set angle. Oh my God, why does it never work? Set angle. I'm gonna set the angle, bro. So you can set the angle to a random per component. Because it's a sphere, you can do you can randomize all 3 angles. So you could just do 360 to negative 360. And again, you could probably plug in these, but this just makes it so that the starting spot, so they actually don't look the same. And that's looking pretty cool. So when you shoot this, we should probably dissolve it more as well. So let's, in the additive shader, the range can be a number that goes over the lifetime as well. So let's press plus on this on the right, and we'll add a float. This is going to be called the range. And so let's edit this in the graph inspector. It can start at 0.33, and we'll put this into, I know what we'll do. We'll put the range into the range here. And so then over the lifetime, we can edit this inside of the VFX tutorial. So let's see. So if we do this, the range is 0.33, but if we start, so we take another sample curve, so we could copy paste this like this, and we start this at 0.33 or whatever, and it goes upwards to 1. So 1 is fully dissolved. So instead of it just becoming transparent over the lifetime, it will dissolve it into the pieces based on the thing. So it will increase the range over the lifetime, and it will change how it dissolves. So let's do that. Let's save this and see how that looks. So now you can see it kind of doesn't look like spheres anymore that are coming out of it because of the way that the dissolve works. So instead of the entire alpha going to 0 right away, it actually dissolves and it looks more slimy than it did before. So that's going to have to do for this. So then we also want to do an explosion. We're just going to copy paste this for the explosion. So it'll be the exact same thing, except for it's just going to be a burst of particles, and they're going to, instead of them doing this, they'll go into a circle. So let's do that. So let's all right, so now we need to make the explosion. If you're still watching this, it's a miracle because this video is probably like over an hour and a half or something. So that's incredible if you're still watching this. So we're just gonna make a visual effect graph, and we'll call this bug attack explosion. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. So drag this into the scene. This is gonna be the explosion that happens when the thing hits the wall. So we're just gonna put this right here, and we'll bring it up. And it's the same exact thing as this. So you can press Control A inside of this or select everything. If you double click on the bug explosion that we just made, we can delete all of the stuff that's in this visual effect graph, and then we'll paste in the one that we have. So we don't want a constant spawn rate for this. This is just going to happen once and then it's going to disappear. So let's make this a burst of particles. And it's going to be a burst of maybe like 100 particles, and the capacity can also be 100 because it's only going to burst once. It's going to disappear. And then we want this to go into a sphere. So if you press the space bar at the top here, you can type in sphere, set the position into an arc sphere, and we want to bring that to the very top. In the arc sphere, we want to the set position needs to happen first. It is the most important thing because we're in world space. So when you set the position, it will move it. So we're setting the position to a sphere, and then we want the velocity to be based on this sphere. So what we can do is if you press right click over here, get position, then you can put this into this set velocity random and put it into the B. And then the rest of these top values can go to 0. So when you run this, it explodes. Now the lifetime is way too low for this. So let's do 1 to 5. Okay, so this is, that's big. Set position local 0, 0, 0, but that's in world space. So what the hell? Why is it blowing up over there? Oh, we're setting the position here. So, okay, so get rid of this set position because we're setting the position here, and just change this to local. That will put it in the right spot. And then you could turn the size way back down to 5 to 9 or whatever. And this sphere that it's blowing up into, this also needs to be world space. So these both need to be world space, I think. And okay, you know what? We don't need to do this in world space because it's only going to blow up in the same spot. The only reason we're using world space for this is because we want the particles to drop, but the game object is moving. But this game object's not going to move. It's going to sit still. So we're just going to put everything to local, and that will fix it. The reason that it was shooting to the left is because it's going from 0, 0 to there, and the position is this way. So that's why it's going that way. So if we save this, That looks good. And we need to multiply this so that more it goes further. It goes more further. So just multiply this by like 15, and then we'll put this into B, and it does that. And that's way too much, maybe. So let's do 5. And the life is way too long. I think the size should be 1 to 5, maybe. And this should be 15. And this can be 45. So it kind of splashes everywhere. That looks kind of cool. And I don't think it should stick to the plane. So we can have gravity still, but get rid of the friction. So just change the friction to 0. And so that way it just keeps going like that. I think that's pretty cool. And then the lifetime could maybe just be a little bit less because um, we don't want it to last very long. So maybe we need more particles and a smaller lifetime. So 0 to 0.5 and make it 0.1 to 0.5. Let's do 0.8 instead. Ooh, that's way too long. 0.8, not 8. And yeah, just turn up the particles to like 300. I don't know. Oh yeah, that's looking super cool. Okay, yeah, and then maybe just a little bit larger as well. So like, let's do 8 and see how that looks. All right, so that's going to be it for that. So we've got the explosion, we've got the shader. Let's put all of this, let's dock all this stuff up here at the top. And so the last thing that we need to do is if we go back to our bug enemy, let's in the actual level, I'm going to go into the room and I'm just going to disable the enemy that we already have because that's an enemy in an actual room. And then so this bug enemy, we need to make prefabs for both of the things that we just added. So drag the slime attack into the bottom and also drag the bug attack explosion into the bottom. And then what you can do is in the bug enemy, you can drag the slime attack into the attack slot. You can drag the slime explosion, bug attack explosion into. Oh, right. Okay. So then the other thing is that we need another script which will actually go on the attack so that way when it hits the wall it blows up. Let me just see what it is in here. So in the bug enemy we have the bug attack, which has the enemy attack script. So now I need to find enemy attack script. So there's another script that you have to make, which is the enemy attack script, which actually goes onto the bug attack. So let's drag that onto the slime attack. And then in the bug tutorial, we can drag the slime attack into the thing. So the purpose of the enemy attack script basically is so when it hits your player, you can damage your player. Now this would be whenever your damage script is in yours, and we can destroy the explosion after 3 seconds, and we can destroy this game object after it hits something. So this is actually going to be attached to the attack, and then this attack can have the bug explosion as part of the script. So let me just see. So this should be in the bug tutorial. Bug attack, sorry, slime attack. This bug attack explosion goes in here. And then let's just look at the enemy. Okay, so this is done. So we can get rid of these. If you've made prefabs of them, you can get rid of them in the scene. And then the bug enemy has a death effect. So we need to enemy death effect. This is inheriting from the enemy script that we made in a previous video. The rigid body should be attached to the enemy. And then he also needs a box collider or something along those lines so that he doesn't fall through the floor. Just make sure the box collider is around him. So right now it's not. So let's just make this bigger. And we'll just make the size of X and Z bigger. And then we want to make sure that he's on the enemy layer. And then this attack that we've made as well. So in the bug tutorial, this slime attack, it needs to be on the enemy attack layer. This is a layer that I've made that does not interact with the enemy itself. So when you shoot this attack, if it touches the enemy, it will blow up right away. And so this will prevent, because inside of the preferences, you can change the physics to have these, sorry, not the preferences, the project settings. You can go to physics, and my enemy attack layer doesn't interact with the enemy. So when he shoots the attack, it won't hit himself and blow up. So that's good. And then, so he has a nav mesh attached to him, and we need to drag the nav mesh into that slot. Move radius is good. Stop distance too. Rotation speed can be like 30, so it's super fast. So he turns towards the target that he's going to shoot at. And yeah, I think that might be it. So let's see how this goes. Is there an error? Object preference not set to... Oh, that's not from that. Okay, and that took an embarrassing amount of time. So the problem was that because the animation included the rotation of the thing, it was overriding the rotation. I also added an outline off camera to the character. So let me just go up with this rock so he doesn't kill me. So if you click on the character, we made this outline script in one of the first videos of the series. This is just from the Unity asset store. So when you add this, it adds like a black outline. You could also, if you want, like you could make this like green or something. It's not going to apply it in real time. This only does this at the very beginning, so you'd have to restart the game. I'm not going to bother doing that. But yeah, so I also, this splashy effect, when it hits, I made it a little bit brighter. So if you go into the Slime VFX tutorial, in here, I changed it to 2.3. You got to be careful with these numbers, because if you go up to like 3, for example, it's super blindingly bright. It's like way too much. So I think I've hit the perfect balance here. And I think this guy looks way better than, oh shit, he went fucking bouncy there. Okay, and to fix this, it looks like I just had to put the box collider under the ground. So the box collider has to be interacting with the ground in order for this to work properly. So you can see now that I've changed that. He's walking correctly, and I didn't show the script earlier, so let me just do that. I'll go up here. So the thing that you have to do if you added a rotation in the animation, which we did, there's something called on animator move. And if you have an animator and you're applying the root motion, you set the rotation to be multiplied by the animator's delta rotation. So the animator has its own rotation and it overwrites the character's rotation, but instead of that, we're multiplying the character's rotation with the delta rotation, which makes him actually stay rotated. So the reason that he wasn't actually moving around properly was because he wasn't multiplying the rotation at all. So now you can see this is doing this. I also had to change the delay before he shoots. So inside of here, under he plays his animation, and then it takes 0.6 seconds before it actually looks good. And then you can also make this maybe faster if you want to make it harder to dodge. I'm probably going to put multiple of this character in the same room so that there's like, that will be the complication factor rather than making him attack faster or something like that. But I think this guy turned out really cool. I'm probably going to re-record the intro because I think this version is way cooler than the version that I showed at the beginning. So if you guys are enjoying the series, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, you can see that like because of the enemy script, that's the damage stuff from the other scripts. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.